And then a community outside of that, resources. And I think that's how brands are going to survive, is actually having a rich community that feels like it's not just selling, it's an emotional connection to them. So
welcome to a special edition of the Evolve Voices podcast, Evolve at eTail. I'm still here to tell you the fascinating stories behind the people that power global commerce, just from sunny Palm Springs. This is raw, unfiltered, in the moment. I hope you feel like you're right there with me. I'm your host, Edilsa, a brand advisor, and the US host of the Evolve Voices podcast. Today's story is one of community. I take you through Madison Lee's journey from corporate life at CAA to launching the science-backed vegan skincare collection for moms and babies, Nemah. After years in the fast-paced entertainment world, Madison made the leap into entrepreneurship, bootstrapping his way through the highs and lows. We'll explore unexpected moments of support, like when friends showed up to help fulfill orders, or Nemah's feature on Kourtney Kardashian's lifestyle brand Poosh, or the secret power of moms and their millions of followers. Today, as a proud husband, father of 3, and founder of Nemah, Madison has built a brand focused on meaningful connections with his team and customers, because community means everything. Hey, Madison.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Yeah.
First time at eTail for both of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I've been at conferences before, but this is my first time, and now live in San Diego. So right down the block. Where are you living?
Nashville.
Oh, I love the city of Nashville. Love it.
It's cool. It's a good town. We've been there 15 years.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I'm nobody else from our team's out there. We got quite a small team out here. So yeah, just trying to take it all in. Meet some new people.
Yeah.
Hear about all the exciting things they're working on.
You know what's crazy? You talked about Nashville. It makes sense. The city of music.
Yeah.
And one thing I did want to bring you back to is your time at CA, not to dive into it, but it's crazy to think about that was a precursor to Nemah, your skincare brand. And in so many ways, it's maybe the starting point even before it, because I can imagine, I mean, you were there, you were promoted in 2017 at World Crashes Down for everyone. You were laid off, and I loved how authentic you were about the impact it had on your life. It caught you by surprise. Like, can you take me back to that moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, look, I think it's an ego hit to anybody when that stuff happens. It's just kind of how you bounce back from it. I think it was really, so I got some really good advice when I was going through it. And I quickly kind of came out of the hole from it. But it was, if you haven't been through that, then you're kind of at a disadvantage going through these motions in your career, because it just kind of gives you a little bit of that chip on your shoulder, and you're going to prove somebody wrong, and you're going to have to get uncomfortable with whatever you're doing next, which I was comfortable there. And it was a great job. It was a great team. We were all music touring. And so when shows stopped playing, everything stops. So, it's been really insightful to kind of bring what I learned there, and then just that experience into, all right, I'm going to go build something, with my wife, and where we are now. So. Yeah. You talked about how it brought this new perspective. You all of a sudden wanted to try new things. When did that hit you? That, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Yeah, probably, I don't know, the fall of 2020, we both started working on it. It was kind of going to be a little bit more of like a placeholder thing, I guess. It was like, hey, look, I've got some time, and you wanted to do this, speaking to Mary, founder. Let me help you get this off the ground, and let's see what's next. Because she's always wanted to have her own brand. She's had a presence online for a while, turning that into something more sustainable. It's not so founder dependent. Was always important. It became pretty clear what that should be. It should be something in the mom and baby space. And then, just leaning into that, there's such a gap for brands that are giving high quality premium feel on the products they're using on their body, like they do for hair care or skincare in general. There's just not that for this phase of life.
Yeah.
And it was really shocking, because it's just like, It's the most emotional time period a woman's going through is
As for you too. I mean, obviously she's going through it with her body, but I can imagine how trippy it is for a dad to
I wanted to be there to help, all parents feel seen and heard, and let's support you with high quality products that you can trust for you and your baby. And then a community outside of that, resources. And I think that's how brands are going to survive, is actually having a rich community that feels like it's not just selling, it's like an emotional connection to them. So
I feel like she brought in a different skill set. She was a nurse before even, and then you coming from a more, I would say, a quote unquote corporate background, and do you feel like that's what like you brought into that space when you started? Were you the one bringing structures? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, I got to see how a well-oiled machine worked. Being at CA, it's one of the biggest talent agencies in the world, and it's also extremely fast-paced. Just the agency world in general. Yeah. So, having to have urgency with all of your decisions, but also intentionality. Spend your time wisely was something I definitely took over from that. And I was like, let me do the back end work here. I feel like I have developed more of a creative mindset, just kind of being a bootstrap brand. You have to learn how to do all the marketing stuff too in the last few years. But I came in with a little bit more on the operational side. Let me just kind of get the X's and O's of this thing going, and let's help find our partners in this and find the manufacturing partners, create the best product. And set us up with different structures around it, different team build out that can have a sustainable brand.
What has it meant to bootstrap, quote unquote? There's a lot of terms for it. One is like learning everything from scratch, putting your own money towards it. So what? Tell me about the experience of bootstrapping a brand.
Yeah, it's certainly hard. It's the long game, and you're always kind of pushed and pulled in the different direction. You have to take risk. You have to do things that you're uncomfortable with doing, and you got to do it all. Have all the resources around you that you can see from companies that are doing that. And so my thing, like, raise a little bit of money so that you can. Our advice would be enough to where you're not kind of just caught with opportunities there, but you really can't fulfill them because there's no resources around you. As much as you can do the MVP thing and get feedback before you really hit go is the best thing. But once you have a concept that you want to risk your time and effort, resources around, then give yourself a little bit of cushion so that you can at least have some help. But you got to rely on, your resources and relationships, and it's certainly the long game. All of your decisions have to be very calculated, which has really just helped me, as a leader the last few years, figure out to distinguish between high impact and high ROI decisions.
Was there like a day that you felt like, oh, dang, we are bootstrapping this thing? Like, where?
I mean, look, we still are. I packed 60 belly oils in a box before I left and sent it off to our warehouse with all the, we self-fulfilled for the first year and a half. And, obviously the surge, it's completely unexpected when those things are going to happen. And, when you might have a piece of organic content that just hits, or an influencer post or anything. So there were certainly the 2 a.m. nights, packing up orders in the office, and that is tough. And that's why I said, give yourself a little bit of resources. We have 3 young kids. So it's a hard phase, a lot of lessons, in this phase for sure that we're going through.
Yeah.
But the physical packing boxes, moving pallets from XYZ is that's when you're like, okay, you're definitely bootstrapped.
I can't even imagine that. It's just like, I've seen my friend also start her matcha company, and she's been doing that too. It's like, or the exhilaration of getting the packaging. How was that a high day for you?
100%. And I think you are at a severe disadvantage if you don't have that touch point early on, because you need to have control over, something that I underestimated. It was on the 3PL side. I couldn't wait to get it off our plate after the first year or so. But also you need to be really careful, because you can do everything that you're doing, and if your partner there is not delivering the end result to the customer and, timely, and a box that's not crushed and the right order and all this kind of stuff, all your work is lost. So, you need to have a touch point to understand the problems and the different box sizes and how you want it packed for the unboxing experience. If you hand all that off too early on, then like you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot by not controlling the customer experience. If that's something you care about, I think it's a really crowded space now. So, especially D2C and CPG brands have to care about how the customer is perceiving the brand digitally and, physically. So having a high touch point early on, I think is really important.
Yeah, what you're saying is bootstrapping also gives you control. Yeah. And I think one of the big things that you've had control that always, when I look at it, is the visual identity of your brand. And talk to me what went through it. Like, what was the process of figuring out this was what we wanted Nemah to be and why it's making you stand out?
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Mary on that side. She kind of comes with that creative eye. She's a brilliant creative from kind of the aesthetic standpoint and knew, all right, we need this to be, we want it skin tones. We want it to feel natural and soft and welcoming, kind of minimalist packaging. And again, I think it's a big advantage that we had from her background of working with so many brands, premium brands in skincare and hair care and body care, that she can distinguish, all right, this actually made me feel a certain way and this one didn't. And the function of the package and the color layout, format of, where everything goes on the packaging. So it's always been important. It used to be more important to have that very tight on socials, and that's something that we had to work through after the first year. So it's like, you got to have a personality too. Yeah. So everything can't be like so prime and proper and exactly how the feed layout is just not a thing anymore. Yeah. So, but also you have to like have that through line. So it takes a lot of work to make sure that you can have that through line, but also have these different channels, serving their purpose. And I think we've done a good job at that, and there's still a lot to learn. You gotta have a good team around you. We put a lot of effort into our brand guide so that like whenever we do onboard new teams and agency partners or any of that sort, that it's pretty clear what that through line is. If you don't have that, it's very easy to get lost, especially as you're growing and scaling, to kind of hold on to that visual identity.
I think you talked about like that is the whole line, like aesthetics is done, but you have to have a through line, right? Because I mean, your products visuals still look incredible. And so how do you guys maintain that level of authenticity without like being overhanded about aesthetics?
Yeah, it's really tough. You got to just have good people around you. Yeah. And I think we put a lot of intention on kind of that brand guide. And now even more so, I think as a marketer, you have to really see, every 3 months, 6 months or whatever, like what does the landscape look like for this channel now? Because it's just probably not like it was last year, right? So TikTok or email is one thing, paid's one thing, UGC, whitelisting, organic social, there's all these different ways that you can reach your customer, and keeping the through line, it is tough. I think we were really intentional on like what our core values are as a company early on. And that's something, I've learned from CAA and have learned from a lot of books. Like it's really easy to, if you have those tight core values and you're really intentional about like setting them. And of course, I think every year you kind of take stock and like, there's something still the same here. But that helps be kind of that beacon of, okay, is this off from our values as a brand or not?
Oh, it's incredible how many don't have the brand guide. And that is why, like, you feel like you're seeing like every 3 months, you're seeing this change in tone and direction. And I love what you said. It's not only about having the brand guide, but then constantly rechecking. Is it still right for us? Yeah. And not so often, like a year, like where you just feel like, okay, is this fresh?
We're doing an audit right now with somebody, and it's like we're going to step into a little bit of a new category with kind of general mom care, bath and body for mom.
Oh, fun.
Outside of perinatal space. And we always knew that was a goal. We want to kind of follow mom's journey along in each of these different phases of motherhood and parenthood. But that was something that's like, all right, we established this brand. It's very focused around perinatal care. Yeah. And that will be, we wanted to do that. It develops like such a sense of trust in such a, vulnerable time period. But now that we're stepping into that, like we need some help to make sure that we're now speaking to a different audience. And so I think that's a project that I would encourage everybody to do is, once a year or so to do, have somebody that's done this before.
Are you working with an agency?
Actually, no, it was a freelancer named Riley. She was highly recommended.
Vote for the win.
Yeah, shout out Riley. So she's going to help us kind of craft the new way that we can speak to some of these general products while still having that through line. Because we want it to be, for the mom and for that time period.
I love that. Bootstrapping gives you control. You get this awesome visual identity. But you talked about right before this, you were packing 60 orders of baby oil. You know, like you have those times. And one thing that I saw as I was looking through Mary's just Instagrams on Nemah was the one time when you guys had 3 of your closest friends come in to fulfill orders.
Oh yeah.
Like, how did that moment feel? Like, were you guys at like your lowest end of like so much? Yeah.
So that's one of those, like when you get an influencer to post that has an extremely engaged audience, and all of a sudden you go from 50 orders a day to 300, and that's for several days. You're like, okay, I have to have some help. So it kind of works into like, we wanted to establish a brand built around community. And I don't think there's a better community than like our demographic. Like, moms just rule at that. They know, you know, that it takes a village thing. So it was kind of a funny instance where like it takes a village to build this brand. It takes a village to like build your family and to do all that. So it was humbling and really sweet. You know, there's some of our dear friends. We actually just moved in next door to one of the friends that helped us there. So luckily all of our stuff's into 3PL now that we love it. They handle it delicately, and I think we're lucky in that sense. I know that's a tough thing for a lot of fans, but those are the early days that you don't forget, and they're cheering us on. I think it'll be fun, you know, once we have a big acquisition later on down the line, we can all say, hey, look, here's where we were.
Yeah. I think as you just talked about like an influencer could cause spikes, right? And so I can't imagine what the Poosh feature did for you guys. And she not only did it once, twice. And how did that moment feel like when you woke up and you saw a feature? Did you have a heads up before it?
We didn't. It was pretty surreal. We, you know, we were trying every angle we could to get our product in front of her once she was going through that. And it worked. She liked the product, and, you know, their team reached out and said, hey, Kourtney actually really loved this. We'd love to put it up on Poosh. And there were no other perinatal brands. It was mostly just general bath and body and skincare. So it was cool. You know, it was a really cool moment. And then all of a sudden it's what's in my hospital bag, which is kind of like a tried and true moment for women going through this. Here's what I'm packing. And for us to be included in that was a really cool, surreal moment.
That is so cool. You talked about working every angle.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is it like, you know, getting into the right people?
Yeah. So I think we like to see our ambassador program and affiliate program as it's one of the most important pieces of our marketing. And so product seeding is a piece of that, you know. So we had to, you know, find any connection we could. I think Blink-182 was like playing a show in Nashville, and somehow we got it in their hotel room or something. Gosh, she was there with Travis or something. Amazing. I feel like that's how.
Okay, that's the top brand ambassador right there.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, there's so many different pieces to influencer marketing, and I think a lot of brands can kind of miss when they're not doing the full thing and really have the ambassador program working. So you kind of have these actual brand loyalists, not just kind of one-off influencer deals. Because I see so much room for growth in the creator economy, as I'm sure a lot of people here do. And it just really helps all of your other marketing functions operate a lot better, right? Like you get content, you get brand loyalists, you actually create real community with your audience, get feedback. It's just more sustainable than kind of the big influencer flat fee partnership stuff.
Yeah. As you talked about, you put it through your 3PL on. Did that help with whatever boost you would get, like be more organized and you having to pack that?
100%. Yeah. And that's like the push and pull of the bootstrapping thing is like, all right, how much of my time is going to this where like I can't really like do things to grow and scale the business.
Right.
So that is the hard part of the first few years, and we're still in that. You know, our team is 3 people, so we're still in that phase certainly, but it's kind of that's where I say you kind of have to make those calculated decisions and try and get as much data as you can around like, all right, what is this going to do for me time-wise, efficiencies? It's actually better for the end customer. They're getting it quicker, whatever it is. So learning a lot in the first years. It's really important to have like your good team of mentors and advisors around.
is there a mental trick you have to understand when you need help? Like right now you brought in Riley. You're like, hey, we probably need an extra set of eyes. Look through our brand guys. Got track us. Like when do you like know, hey, this is time to bring in a plus one?
Yeah. That's a great question. I've gotten a lot better at kind of trusting my gut there and realizing, like I'm quite good at seeing the problems before they exist and then kind of putting the pieces in place to get there. So I could see us launching XYZ product and we're already a little bit struggling on like, hey, our brand guide is really kind of focused on this. Like we really need somebody to come in here and do that. And again, that's like the bootstrap mentality is like, is this something that we need to outsource for an expert at? It's definitely, I'm much more of the mindset on like the things that really matter to you, like hire an expert for that or bring in an expert agency partner, you know, and that's how we're kind of building this right now. And I think certainly we'll kind of flip to more internal structure around that, but it's a really fascinating time just to be in e-commerce because there's so many different resources to help somebody, an entrepreneur, build a business without a team of 50 that can kind of operate.
But also probably so overwhelming.
It is definitely overwhelming. That's what I was saying. I'm here. I haven't really done all this before. It's quite overwhelming and kind of back to the CIA thing. Yeah. You have to be really diligent on like where you're spending your time. You know, you're also playing the long game, you know, as a talent agent, you're taking bets on baby bands that they're going in and that's not going to pay off for years. Yeah. So you got to do your homework on are the right things in place with this band. And now I'm kind of, okay, is this really going to have a high impact ROI for us to do this? And it's easy to get distracted, you know, because they're fascinating companies and they're brilliant leaders and they are solving real problems. But again, if you have a good grip early on like kind of all facets of the business, it'll very much help you distinguish like, okay, that's a great problem solver, but not really for me right now, you know, or I'm more acquisitions than whatever.
Yeah. That just figuring out that ROI, figuring out, do you need it? All those frameworks you have in your mind to figure out, is this what I need now? It is huge. And one thing that I feel like you guys have figured out really well, just talking to the Poosh feature, yes, it happened and you guys didn't know when, but it was a very intentional strategy of brand ambassadors. And I feel like that's one of the most differentiating things that you guys do very well. In a land of influencers, paid influencers versus brand ambassadors, which should we choose?
I would say start with your brand loyalist. And that to us gives us the best data on what we need to then move that into more of the influencer marketing side. It's such an important piece to a brand having sustainable growth. And look, we get a lot of organic content come to us. So we don't do a lot of paid influencer activations. I'm sure that will change down the line, but you have the best touch point with your community and they're like actual brand loyalists and, you know, figure out how it's a two-way street so that they enjoy what they're doing with you and kind of building alongside with you and help with product development and feedback and you know, new campaign launches and you know, not all, it really just helps alleviate some of the creative needs that you have as a brand, content and all that. So we brought in some good partners around that. We have a great partner, Super Affiliates, our affiliate platform that we use.
Great platform.
Amazing. And then we actually brought in a team to help us kind of do end-to-end management of the platform. It's called 0 to 1. And so they've been fantastic. Really, I think building a authentic ambassador affiliate network that doesn't just feel so transactional is a relatively new thing. And so I was of the mindset recently, like, let's find someone that is doing this at a high level with multiple different touch points. Yeah. I can really like rely on them because it's not an industry really. Right. It's been around, executed well for a while. So that's kind of the decision, you know, again, on the bootstrap thing, it's like, where do you hire internally or outsource? It's a tough decision. So.
But I love that you also, it's not just a strategy, but it's the players. You need 0 to 1. You need super affiliates on. Like there's something that needs foundation to be set in place to supercharge this to work. How does it come to life with these brand loyalists and ambassadors? Are the Olapop strategy is you just have a product placement. It's like not them saying like, I am drinking Olapop. These are like how I educate the brand. but or do you have somebody actually using your brand and educating people about it? Like, what's that nuance?
Yeah, I think we're really lucky that we already have a lot of brand loyalists out there. And then it's just kind of like finding more, so I think the tools that you have around you for social listening are really important to figure out who is talking about your brand, but then who's speaking about pregnancy body changes and stretch mark creams in general to basically, just go out and reach them and say, hey, I'd love for you to try this product. If you like it, like, let us know. And we'd love to kind of continue this relationship. And it doesn't have to be big influencers. So a lot of times it's just kind of the customer ambassadors, but because I'm sure that, it's more effective often, the kind of smaller, more engaged audience with certain people than kind of the big macro influencers, I mean, you can also see the extreme power of an engaged macro influencer audience. Like, that's when we have the, hey, I need some help fulfilling orders here days. But the kind of baseline of that is your ambassador group. And as you kind of grow along with them, it's really special to see.
Yeah. And how do you build that trust and community? I mean, those brand loyalists don't come out of it, right? It seems like there was blogging component of it. There's community boards. I would love to hear about like what makes that tie.
Yeah, I think, you have to be a space like ours, it is really important what you're putting on your skin and on your baby's skin. Yeah. So first, have transparent formulas, transparent ingredients, have legitimacy around you from the scientific community, medical community. We have a medical advisory board. And then really just make sure you're kind of not cutting corners. If you want to establish the trust here, get actual opinions on your product that are validated. Yeah. And make sure it's like, hey, we're not cutting corners. We're EU certified, vegan, cruelty-free, all of the stuff that makes it just an easier, like, okay, I can trust this brand. Because it's an important decision. Like I said, this time period, there's so much intentionality around what you're purchasing. So social proof's important too. And that's where the like ambassador thing comes. Yeah. It's like, okay, there's so many other women talking about using this. And I feel we're also in a niche space to where there's just not really a ton of other brands that are like good on socials that I feel proud of on their vanity. And that was kind of what was the aha moment. What was missing is like, gosh, I have an endless amount of skincare, but like, where is the C-section scar cream, or where's the belly oil, or the stuff for my body that is going through such a transformation right now? Like, how is there no brands kind of catering to this phase? And a lot of them probably saw it as like, it's kind of a short-term thing. And so how do you get a long, high LTV with customer of that? Which makes sense, and it's certainly a challenge that we face, but that's why we're trying to be intentional on like what we're putting out next. The baby products or products just for the busy mom after she in her first few years of parenthood stuff. So
we've felt people talking about how it's a niche product. Like, how are people discovering your brand? Obviously through social brand loyalists, but I have a friend who's pregnant now who was like, oh my God, I need to know more about Nemah because I need that for potential C-section, for all these kind of things. But I found it curious how she was finding. She's going a lot, like going through medical journals and seeing things that are like, but she's also going through ChatGPT a lot, and as opposed to Google search for her to get validation. And I have other friends who strictly go through mom boards, and that's how. So like, how are people finding your product?
Yeah, many different ways. Yeah. I think again, the mom community is just about as strong as it can be. Yeah. So making sure you tap into all of it, all the traditional stuff: paid search, paid social, organic social. But there's a lot of interesting ways. Like, we were on Pinterest, but it hasn't been a priority. And now we kind of realize, all right, wait, this is something that we can totally tap into that's a little bit untapped. And you mentioned ChatGPT. I'm supposed to have a meeting here because now there's a way to like figure out, if people are searching what they need to use on their pregnant body, like, let's make sure what comes up. So, and then we're all D2C right now. The goal is to find a retail partner that makes sense for us at some point in that journey. Because you got to meet their customers. You got to meet your customers where they are, for sure. But there's still so much untapped potential, online.
Yeah, registries and that kind of
registries, Reddit. There's all of these different channels. So we're primarily like Instagram, TikTok, starting to get on Pinterest. And then I want to develop our YouTube platform. Kind of YouTube Shorts is next on the agenda.
Long form content is definitely coming back too. So even though YouTube Shorts is still a little bit longer than Reels go, which I feel like is totally playing into the hand of like what the new wave of getting in front of people looks like.
There's so much added value on the YouTube side from an SEO perspective, and it just lives on as the 24 hours. So it's like, it's kind of a totally different bucket that I don't think a lot of brands are tapping into, because traditionally you think it's like, all right, well, I need this highly produced asset. Like, am I doing that, or am I finding a creator to do that? That's kind of a big lift. Now with YouTube Shorts, it's not as much a big barrier to entry there. And I think, it's got a lot of value.
You have these brand loyalists, which helps everything, but how do you even get there as a brand? So like that 0 to 1 playbook of building from 0 followers, you need to get up. Where do people start?
Yeah, that's tough. It's gotta be, you gotta have a good product.
Yeah.
And I think filling that gap, right? Like, you can't just be another brand. And so we were lucky again. Like, there was not a lot of other players that were tapping into this void here. But it's tough. I think as much as you can find some brand champions early on that have somewhat of an audience, that doesn't mean just big amount of followers, but like an engaged community, and just kind of build it out from there. And again, there's so many tools that help with social listening apps on. It's like, all right, let me again go find who is talking about this stuff in my area, and let me connect with them. And we're relatively low cost products, so we can seed it out a lot. So if you're kind of in that lane, just make sure that you get it in the hands of as many people as you can. And
you hinted at what's next for you guys, which is long the road. Maybe there's an acquisition, but like prime yourself, like, in the short term, getting into more retailers. Is that the biggest thing on your horizon as you look forward?
Right now, it's actually like the product pipeline. Yeah, so that kind of comes before what that next step for retail is. So we kind of sit in this space, we're masstige, and so where do we kind of fit? And I think we need to develop a little bit more of that product pipeline for mom, for each of these different phases, and not just perinatal care. So, but certainly retail is on the roadmap, and want to make sure that we're, tight on logistics and supply chain and who our partners are there, which we feel like we made great strides these last, 24 months even, just on that. So
I just hear all these things in your pipeline, no pun intended. And I'm just really just so impressed that you guys have been able to do it together as, husband and wife. Where are the boundaries that you're just okay, here's where work stops, and relationship begins, especially with kids now.
Yeah. I can't say I'm the best to give it. We have 3 young kids. Mary still does lots of, development on her own brand.
Yeah.
She's had a brand for 15 years, and that in turn helps a lot of the Nemah side. So there's a lot that is kind of intertwined there. It's beautiful to be able to build something with people that you trust.
Yeah, I love it.
So, you have kind of the autonomy, which is amazing. But it's tough. I think being really intentional just about hey, it's this time we're just not going to do this. And it's easy to kind of catch yourself in there, but I just went away to this big, long therapy retreat, which was really nice. And it's helped me just come back and be like, all right, I can feel where these conversations are going. Let's just we both know, let's have this tomorrow. Or,
love that. I love that.
Setting the boundaries, I guess.
Sure, tell us.
So it's a place called Onsite. It's 45 minutes outside of Nashville. It's amazing. They do all kinds of different workshops and stuff. And it was honestly, it was like you put your phone up for 6 days.
6 viewers?
You can't talk about your career. You can't talk about your career. So you're in there with, 40 other people and kind of intimately with 6 or 8. And all of a sudden you come out with these amazing friendships, and they were complete strangers 8 days later. It was a really beautiful thing.
I have so many questions here, because one of the things is I always tell my friends that I do not know how to rest. Like, that is not in my vocabulary. And I would not even know where to start. Like, what did you end up feeling? Like, no phone.
They have, it's a very structured program.
Okay.
It's a very structured program. My thing that I took away is like, no matter if you go in with trauma or whatever you work through, it's like at the end of the day, the amount of emotional intelligence you come from having, like, I don't have a career here and I don't have a device. I'm just connecting. And it's kind of funny. You land and like, there is no small talk. You were just like, let me tell you why I'm here, you know? And
so you dive right.
Get right in. And it's like so unusual. We just don't do that in real life. So it just really helps you. Like, all right, I can do this. It helps you be empathetic and connect with, very broad walks of life. So it was a cool thing to do for sure.
As we close, I love that you gave your Mary a shout and being like how hard pregnancy is. But one thing I see even my pregnant friends right now is dads are just in the thick of it and not minimizing the role of women and what they go through. And so I was like looking through the blog and I was like, all these mother topics, midwives, postpartum depression. Like, what's one blog that you wish would have been written for you?
Yeah, just like 101 dad stuff, you know, like it is okay to feel like you are not contributing here. And just find the ways that you can like actually help out. So, I think the conversation has shifted just recently to be so much more open about that experience as a woman. So I'm hoping that, and we can help bridge that gap, kind of bring in some resources to help the dad there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to have you here, Madison. Where can people find you guys?
So Nemah.co, Instagram, TikTok, because I think it's both the same thing there. I'm Madison Lee on Instagram and LinkedIn. Starting to post more on LinkedIn and do that side of things.
It's you. You're like,
I'm trying to get uncomfortable. Yeah, that's right. So,
you'll see all his blonde kiddos, which oh my God, they're gorgeous.
Oh, they're so sweet.
Yeah, they're so sweet.
I can't wait to see you.
Excited to have you and can't wait to learn more about Nemah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Now make sure you subscribe to Evolve Voices, this leading and incredible project where our ambassadors are interviewing amazing professionals from all over the world so they can share their perspective and benefit you with their perspective, their knowledge, and you can understand what's happening in the different markets. Evolve Voices is a project part of the Evolve Commerce Club, the #1 and leading community where we connect international professionals in the world of commerce. We are now connecting professionals in more than 40 markets, and every week we invite an expert to share their perspective and their knowledge. So if you'd like to know more, you can always look at the comments. We have a link there so you can request your application and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching. All the best. Ciao.